The message glowed coldly on the computer screen. Clear your desk by the end of the day, Hannah. Human resources will handle the exit paperwork. The words blurred as she reread them, her heart thudding painfully. 5 years at Northbridge Logistics. 5 years of early mornings, late nights, and leading the top-performing team in the division. And all it took was one email to erase it. Her father had passed away only a week ago, and she had taken 3 approved days of bereavement leave. Apparently that was too long. The email continued. We need employees who prioritize their work. As if attending her father's funeral was some casual choice. Hannah sat still, her office eerily quiet in the pale morning light. The Boise sky outside was just beginning to brighten, a thin orange line peeking over the horizon. She had come in early, planning to catch up on reports after her brief absence, but now that plan dissolved into disbelief. Her fingers trembled slightly as she scrolled through the message again. Failure to maintain adequate presence during critical operational periods. That was the official reason. She whispered under her breath. My father's death was one of those critical periods, I guess. Instead of breaking down, she took a deep breath, grabbed her phone, and took a photo of the email, evidence. She stood up quietly, the leather chair creaking as if in sympathy. Around her desk were small pieces of her life. A cactus her team had gifted her last Christmas, a framed picture of them laughing at a company retreat, and handwritten notes from colleagues she'd mentored. 5 years condensed into items that could fit into a single box. She powered down her computer, took one last look at her desk, and began packing. By the time the first employees began arriving, half of her things were already sealed away. Tanya from accounting spotted her and froze. Hannah, what are you doing? Tanya's voice carried genuine confusion. They let me go, Hannah said simply. What? Why? Tanya asked, disbelief painting her face. Hannah wrapped the cactus in newspaper before answering. Apparently taking time off to bury my father shows a lack of commitment. Tanya gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. That's not right. Have you talked to Paul? He should know about this. Hannah shook her head slowly. No. I'm not fighting it, but I won't forget it either. The calm in her voice surprised even her. Soon more of her team began arriving. Jason, her logistics coordinator, Maria, the client liaison, and 4 others who had worked under her guidance. When Jason saw the box on her desk, his cheerful grin vanished. This is ridiculous, Jason muttered angrily. You just helped us land the Newbrook contract last month. Profits are up because of your strategy. Hannah smiled sadly. Apparently that wasn't enough. By 9:30 a.m., all 7 members of her core team stood silently around her, their faces a mixture of disbelief and anger. You can't leave, Maria said, her eyes filling with tears. We've got renewals next week. Nobody knows the systems like you. Hannah taped the box shut. Tell that to management, she replied softly. Just then a sharp, familiar voice cut through the tension. Paul Richards, her supervisor. Everyone back to work. No one moved. The silence stretched, thick with quiet defiance. Paul's polished shoes clicked against the floor as he approached. His arms crossed tightly. This could have been handled privately, Hannah, he said in a low, reprimanding tone. She looked up at him, her eyes steady. Privately? Like the email you sent firing me for going to my father's funeral. His expression hardened, but a flicker of discomfort flashed in his eyes. Business needs change, he muttered. We require people who can adapt. Hannah's lips tightened. Then I hope your next hire adapts well to a heartless culture. She lifted her box and straightened her shoulders. Paul's jaw flexed, his voice sharp. Human resources is waiting for you. Please don't make this harder than it has to be. Hannah gave a small nod. Don't worry. I won't make a scene. But remember this moment, Paul. It might matter later. As she walked toward the HR office, her co-workers' eyes followed her, some full of sympathy, others of silent rage. Inside the HR department, the atmosphere felt sterile and cold. Barbara Kent, a young HR officer, looked up as Hannah entered. Her face softened immediately. "I'm really sorry about this," Barbara said, sliding a stack of documents across the desk. "And about your father." "Thank you," Hannah replied quietly, scanning the papers. 2-week severance, a non-disparagement clause, and a 6-month non-compete agreement. Barbara hesitated. "Can I ask, what happened? You've been one of our best team leads." Hannah took out her phone and showed her the email. Barbara's eyes widened. "They fired you for bereavement leave?" Hannah nodded once. 3 days off. Proved. And apparently that made me unreliable. Barbara frowned, scribbling notes. "This doesn't look right. I'll need to verify something with legal. Do you mind waiting a moment?" "Take your time," Hannah said, her tone calm but heavy with exhaustion. When Barbara left, Hannah turned toward the window. The Boise River shimmered in the distance under the soft morning sun. Her father had loved that river. He'd taught her to fish there, always saying, "The river moves, Hannah girl, but the rocks stay steady. Be the rock." She smiled faintly, remembering his steady patience and warm laughter. Barbara returned 20 minutes later, her face composed but pale. "I'm sorry," she began carefully. "Idaho is an at-will state. There's not much that can be done legally." Hannah nodded. "That's all right. Summit Edge can do what it wants. So can I." Barbara leaned forward, lowering her voice. "Off the record, this isn't right. If you ever decide to challenge it, you'd have a strong case." Hannah smiled faintly. "I appreciate that. But I'm done fighting for a place that doesn't value people." She stood, gathering her papers and the box from the floor. As she walked through the open office one last time, her team looked up from their desks, their faces heavy with emotion. Hannah paused at the door, meeting each of their eyes. "Thank you for everything," she said softly. Then she stepped into the sunlight outside, feeling the warmth on her face and a strange calm in her chest. The September air was warm against her skin as Hannah placed her box in the trunk of her car. She sat for a moment, gripping the steering wheel as reality sank in. 5 years. Gone with one heartless email. Her phone vibrated with messages. "Jason. This is wrong. What can we do?" "Maria. Are you okay?" "Ethan. Paul's a coward." The team's furious. Dozens of texts poured in, full of support, anger, and disbelief. Hannah read each one carefully, her eyes misty but calm. These weren't just co-workers, they were her people, her family. "The river moves," she whispered, remembering her father's voice. "But the rocks stay steady." Her phone rang. The name on the screen made her heart skip. David Ross, CEO of Silverline Transport, their biggest competitor. They had met at a conference months ago. He'd tried to recruit her then. "Hannah," his warm, confident voice said, "I just heard what happened. That's unbelievable." "Word travels fast," she replied softly. "I'm sorry it's under these circumstances," he continued. "But I meant what I said last time. We need someone like you at Silverline. Our Northwest division is growing fast." Hannah hesitated, her mind spinning. "That's a generous offer, David, but my contract, there's a non-compete." David chuckled. "Let our legal team worry about that. Just think about it." That evening, Hannah met Jason and Maria at a quiet cafe by the river. The lights shimmered on the water, reflecting a calm that felt far from her current storm. Maria leaned forward. "You doing okay?" she asked gently. "I'm fine," Hannah said, forcing a small smile. Jason shook his head. "Paul's losing control. Everyone's talking. No one knows where your reports are or how to handle the Wilson renewal. The place is a mess." Hannah stirred her tea, her lips curving faintly. "That sounds like a management problem now." Jason's grin returned briefly. "I can't believe how they treated you after everything you built." Maria sighed. "People are scared, Hannah. If they can fire you, their best team lead, then what chance do the rest of us have?" Hannah looked at her friends, feeling both proud and sad. "You both deserve better than fear," she said softly. Jason glanced around the cafe. So what's next? You're not really just walking away, are you? Hannah took a deep breath. I'm not going to fight Summit Edge in court. That's a waste of energy. But maybe there's another way. Maria's brow furrowed. Another way? Yes, Hannah said, her tone calm and deliberate. I'll build something better. The next morning, Hannah met with a lawyer named Vincent Clark, an employment expert her friend recommended. His office was quiet, lined with books and framed certificates. She handed him the email and her contract. Vincent adjusted his glasses, scanning through them. They fired you after approving bereavement leave? Yes. That's a serious misstep, he said, leaning back. Firing someone for attending a parent's funeral can be argued as wrongful termination and breach of good faith. Hannah nodded. I don't want to sue. I just want to know if this non-compete can stop me from working. Vincent smiled knowingly. Not likely, not after this. He flipped through the document again. 6 months of restriction across 300 miles. Courts rarely enforce that, especially when an employer acts in bad faith. If you joined Silverline, you'd have a solid defense. Hannah exhaled slowly, the weight on her chest easing. So, I can take the offer. You can, Vincent said. Just proceed with care. And keep all your records. That email alone could protect you. She smiled. Thank you, Vincent. My father used to say patience wins more battles than anger. The lawyer chuckled. Then you're already ahead. As she left his office, the city sunlight felt brighter than it had in days. Over the weekend, messages from her old team kept flooding in. Paul had called an emergency meeting on Saturday, demanding everyone take on new workloads to replace her. It's chaos, Maria texted. He doesn't even know half the systems you built. Ethan added, clients are already asking for you. Hannah couldn't help but smile faintly. She hadn't planned revenge, but karma seemed to be handling it for her. Late Sunday night she called David Ross. I've thought about your offer, she said. And? He asked eagerly. I'll take it. But on one condition. Name it. If any of my old team applies, give them a fair chance. David laughed warmly. Fair chance. If they're half as sharp as you, we'll roll out the red carpet. Monday morning, Hannah walked into Silverline Transport's headquarters. The difference hit her instantly. Open spaces, sunlight streaming through glass walls, people smiling instead of rushing. David greeted her at the entrance, extending his hand. Welcome aboard, Director. The title caught her by surprise. Director. You've earned it, he said with a grin. Pacific Northwest Operations is now yours. For the first time in days, Hannah felt her heart lift. Let's get to work, she replied, her voice steady and sure. By midweek, her former colleagues reached out again. Jason's message came first. Is it true you're at Silverline? Hannah smiled at her screen. It's true. His reply came instantly. Then expect a wave of applications. Maria texted next. You started a movement. Everyone's talking. Hannah stared at the messages, feeling a mix of pride and disbelief. The company that once discarded her was now struggling to hold itself together, while the people she had mentored were looking to follow her lead. The river was shifting, and this time she was steady as the rock. That Friday morning, Hannah sat in her new office, sunlight warming the wooden desk. Her inbox pinged with 7 job applications, everyone from her former core team. Jason, Maria, Ethan, Louise, Finn, Grace, Killa. Her breath caught as she read their cover letters. Each had written about her leadership, her integrity, her guidance. Hannah smiled softly. She picked up her phone and called David. I think I've found the rest of our team, she said. Then let's bring them in, he replied. As she hung up, she looked out at the Boise skyline and whispered, the river moves, but the rocks stay steady. Monday morning began with a call from Paula, the regional manager at Northbridge Logistics. Hannah hesitated before answering. Good morning, Paula, she said calmly. Hannah, I've just received 7 resignation letters. Paula said without preamble. All from your former team. Effective immediately. Care to explain? Hannah leaned back in her chair, her tone even. I'm not sure there's anything to explain. I don't work for Northbridge anymore. Paula's sigh crackled through the line. They're all going to Silverline, aren't they? You just started there. People make choices, Paula, Hannah said gently. Maybe you should ask Paul why your best team decided to leave. Paula's tone softened slightly. This isn't how I wanted things to go. Paul didn't even consult me before firing you. I would never have approved that. Hannah's fingers tapped the desk quietly. Then maybe ask yourself why you weren't consulted about something that important. There was silence on the other end. Finally, Paula said, I'm prepared to offer your position back, with a 10% raise and a formal apology. We need your expertise. Hannah's lips curved faintly. I appreciate the offer, but I've moved on. We'll match whatever they're paying plus 15%, Paula pushed. It's not about money, Hannah said softly. It's about respect. Hannah, please, Paula pleaded, her voice breaking. What would it take to bring you back? Losing all 7 of your former team members is crippling us. Hannah hesitated, her eyes on the framed picture of her father she had placed on her new desk. It would take time travel, she said quietly. Going back to when my father died, and choosing compassion over punishment. The line went silent. Paula finally exhaled, weary and defeated. I understand. Good luck, Hannah. You too, Hannah replied, ending the call. She stared at the river glinting through her office window and whispered, Patience wins more than anger, Dad. You were right. By Wednesday, interviews began at Silverline. David stopped by her office, smiling. I met Jason and Maria this morning, he said. Sharp minds. Strong loyalty. You trained them well. Hannah grinned. They taught me just as much. We'll be sending offers by Friday, David said. Your entire old team will be under your division again. That afternoon, her phone buzzed with a call from Barbara Kent, Northbridge's HR representative. I shouldn't be saying this, Barbara began in a low tone, but Paul has been suspended. Paula launched an internal investigation into how you were terminated. Hannah closed her eyes, letting the news sink in. Thank you, Barbara. Barbara continued. The board's involved now. They're reviewing every termination over the past year. The way your case was handled opened a lot of eyes. That's good to hear, Hannah said sincerely. You didn't deserve what happened, Barbara added softly. None of you did. We're better off now, Hannah said with quiet conviction. Thank you for letting me know. By Friday, each of her former teammates had officially joined Silverline. They met that evening at a small restaurant overlooking the river, the same place Hannah had met Jason and Maria weeks earlier. This time, laughter filled the air instead of tension. To new beginnings, Maria toasted, raising her glass. To Hannah, Jason added, smiling. For showing us what real leadership looks like. Hannah laughed, shaking her head. To all of us, for surviving the storm. The team cheered, clinking glasses. For the first time in months, they looked genuinely happy. They talked about projects, new clients, and even shared stories about how relaxed the work environment now felt. Can you believe we actually enjoy coming to work? Dan joked. That's because we finally work where people matter, Ethan replied. Hannah looked around the table, her heart full. We didn't lose, we evolved. Weeks later, the ripple effect hit the news. Northbridge Logistics announces restructuring after client losses. Hannah showed the headline to her team during a morning meeting. Looks like karma's faster than I thought, Jason said with a grin. They lost the Wilson contract, Maria added. And the Hernandez account too. That's nearly a third of their revenue. Hannah simply nodded. When a company forgets its people, it forgets its purpose. David stopped by later that day, beaming. 30% growth this quarter, Hannah. You and your team have rebuilt this division from the ground up. I couldn't be prouder. 3 months later, Silverline's Pacific Northwest division became the company's crown jewel. Their efficiency soared, Clients praised their work, and employee satisfaction hit record highs. One afternoon, Hannah returned to her office to find her team waiting with a cake. "What's this?" she asked, laughing. 3 months since we all jumped ship," Jason said proudly. "Our Independence Day." Hannah laughed so hard she nearly cried. "You're all ridiculous, but I'm proud of you." They shared cake and laughter, remembering the day she had walked out of Northbridge. "You turned a dismissal into a destiny," Maria said softly. "That's power." 6 months later, Hannah received a lunch invitation from Paula. Curious, she accepted. They met at a quiet restaurant overlooking the Boise River. Paula looked different. Calmer, almost humbled. "Thank you for meeting me," she said sincerely. "I wanted to apologize. I created an environment where people like Paul could make cruel decisions." "You weren't the one who fired me," Hannah said kindly. "No," Paula admitted. "But I let the system break people like you. After you left, everything fell apart. The board hired consultants who tore the company apart. Northbridge is being sold to Meridian Transport at half its value." Hannah nodded slowly. Paula studied her. Was it worth it, walking away quietly instead of fighting? Hannah smiled, gazing at the flowing river outside. "Yes," she said softly. "The results speak for themselves." A year after that fateful email, Hannah became executive vice president of Silverline's Northwest operations. Her former team now led departments of their own, thriving and respected. One afternoon, she received a small package at her office. Inside was her old cactus from Barbara with a note. "Rescued this from your desk. Thought you'd want it back. Northbridge closes next week." Hannah placed it on her windowsill, sunlight bathing its green leaves. "We both found better ground," she whispered. Looking out over the Boise River, steady and endless, she smiled. "The greatest revenge," she murmured, "is building something better."